All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome back. I have a special guest on today. I got Tony, Fireman Flips. So, from the name, I'm sure you can kind of figure out what his profession is. But welcome, Tony.
I appreciate it. Appreciate the opportunity. Looking forward to chatting and seeing how I can, maybe add some value and see what value I can get from you guys.
No, I think this is going to be a super interesting one. I'm glad you connected with me on one of my lives, and you kind of mentioned what you're working on. So maybe tell my audience kind of your background, what your portfolio looks like, and kind of your little niche in the real estate
Yeah,
market.
yeah. Just the kind of the short story. Grew up in a pretty rough area, Cincinnati. The typical, gangs and that background, but sports kind of kept me and my brother out of that life. We've had quite a few friends who didn't make it out. So it's my mom did a pretty amazing job of keeping us off the streets, and sports was kind of that outlet for us to uh to to continue to do good in school and things like that. So um as I started to grow up, I always was into the fireman thing, just because like going through to our Boys and Girls Club, we had to pass a fire station, and the guys were always pretty understanding with all the things that were going on, because our apartment building, they were there a lot. So it was kind of cool. As I started to progress, a lot of the guys remembered me because just being a pretty bad kid. So it was kind of cool to see a lot of those guys, because we had a couple coaches who were firemen at that station that we would walk past. So one of the guys were actually there during like our pen of becoming a fireman. So it was a cool, super cool experience. So as I started to kind of grow up, I obviously wanted to do the fireman thing. With football, you couldn't do both, so I felt like kind of God gave me that opportunity, because I had some hard stuff happened where I passed out, realized I had like Wolf Parkinson White, which then prevented me from continuing to play football. Obviously, being concerned that I might not be able to do the fire thing. I was had a couple procedures done, almost had to get a pacemaker. Thank God that technology and things like that, I was able to bypass that process. As I started to then grow up, I realized that this was my calling. Started to pursue that fireman life. In the process, started to do some training. I had some, my youngest son, I think he was about 3, realizing that I wanted to spend a little bit more time at home, and away from the firehouse. I started to really pursue the personal training, speed and agility aspect, and it was more of a side hustle that kind of grew into something that actually took me away from the part-time firefighting, and allowed me to be home more. And then as that, yeah, I don't know how I recall. I think it was, the typical Rich Dad Poor Dad. I got that book, and once I dived into that book, it was like the lightning bolt, because just growing up, no one really ever taught us about finances, how important assets was. Didn't really even know very many people who owned their own home, so it was just kind of taboo to talk about finances around our way. And then even in the fire station, it is still super taboo. We've had guys that we've got a really good pension, and our deferred comp is really good. So most of those guys just continue to put into deferred comp, and then just kind of ride that wave. And I was never that person, right? I was always kind of the entrepreneur type of person. So once I dialed into that book, it was just like something obviously spoke to me. Started to kind of do a little bit more research, and figured out bigger pockets. And then it was on from there once I kind of got into bigger pockets and dialing into bigger pockets. And then kind of a cool thing. So um, I was able to listen to one of the podcasts off of Bigger Pockets, and a guy that was a fireman was on there, Mike.
Mike?
So I I was hounding Mike. I was like, man, I need some one on one, as I knew, just trying to bypass the small mistakes and like understanding how important, the mentorships and things was. So I was hounding him about letting me, be almost him mentor me. And he said yes. And that was kind of the history behind, me getting my first one, because I know I'm a big kind of analyzer, and just, I'm a procrastinator by nature. Just push things off, and then, having that mentorship, him one on one, is just was able to really push me to pulling the trigger on that first property.
Yeah, awesome. If some of you don't know, he's talking about Mike Webb, who was, I forget what episode, Bigger Pockets, he's on, but he's also one of the founders of First Responder Financial Freedom podcast. So go check that out. Bunch of group, bunch of good guys, Aaron, Tyler, Mike. But yeah, awesome community to be around. But I
Yeah.
like you touched on. So like, how many years have you been a firefighter already, and how many years have you been doing real estate?
So 12 years as being a firefighter, and in February of this year, it'll be my second year of doing the real estate.
Okay. And so fireman flips. So I'm assuming you flip houses. Is that your strategy?
That was the intent. That was the original intent. Obviously, realizing you hear the bigger pockets about people, flipping and making all this money. But I started to realize, as I got through, heard about the Burr method, and being able to then almost have that flip but hold. And I knew I was kind of always looking the long run for me. So it only made sense to try to, and then burr a property to get my money back out, and then go that route.
Okay, cool. So, you sounds like you've been in the firehouse, a decent amount of time. I've probably done, I'm about 17 years now. You
Okay.
kind of at that 10-year mark. I don't know if it's you've noticed it, but you kind of hit that point where you're kind of like starting to evaluate things a little bit differently. And like you touched on, like we have so many opportunities, but it's also so easy to get caught up into just putting into your deferred comp, waiting
Mhm.
for that pension. And then, like you said, you kind of see that in your firehouse. And I'm not sure how much, like overtime is so abundant in our department.
Yep.
It's so
Yep.
easy to just kind of head down that path. And you
Hmm.
said you found Rich Dad Poor Dad, you found Bigger Pockets. So for you, like I guess, I what do you see your W-2 as? Are you trying to get out early? Are you trying to leverage it? So how do you see your W-2 right now?
Yeah, I'm definitely using it as a superpower. I truly enjoy my job, right? Like, I truly enjoy being a firefighter, and I don't see myself leaving. I do plan on, not having to do the drop and all the different things that come with like having to do that, versus, hey, I do want to do the drop for a few years or so. I want to have that option. So I don't plan on retire early, but I do plan on continuing to leverage that and use it as a superpower, because I think a W 2 is a true superpower when it comes to being able to get loans, and all the different things that come with having a W 2.
I like what you said there about just kind of having an option also. And that was kind of the biggest change for me. Like you said, I still love the job. I still love doing the job. For me, it might have been a little bit different than you though. It was more, just kind of the whole COVID era was kind of
Mhm.
eye-opening,
Okay.
and being forced to do certain things that maybe you didn't agree with or whatnot. Just that was kind of more what opened my eyes to just having an option. If there's something else that comes along where maybe you don't believe in or you don't want to do, you put yourself in a financial position to where, like you said, you can have an option to either walk away or whatnot. But that was my eye-opening moment for me. But I was definitely just waiting for that pension, like pension, deferred
Hmm.
comp, like you said, and yeah, like you said, it's a great job, but at
Hmm.
the same time, it's dangerous. And then, like you said, you get a family, you start thinking about some things differently.
Mhm.
But yeah, let's kind of dig into maybe the more of the real estate side.
Mhm.
Your portfolio, like you said, the burst strategy. So where are you at now, portfolio size? And like, I really want to dig into
Mhm.
this kind of niche that you kind of
Yeah.
mentioned to me. So let's get into that.
So as of right now, we've got 5 properties, 3 that are currently rented, and 2 that we just acquired. Both were our last 2 were auction properties. So I'm starting to get more into the pre-foreclosure, foreclosure niche, so to say, right? So I've been dialing into that pretty heavy, which led me to the auction properties. So like our my first one, it actually has just been, it was kind of a coast one. It was one that made me either pull the trigger. I was either going to pull the trigger or I wasn't, right? So like that one I purchased for 115, PITI is 1100, but the rents are 1500 on that one. So it's just a, nice easy, because I didn't have to do any renovation because I inherited a tenant, Section 8 tenant. So that one was just a smooth sailing one where it was just like, hey, this is a nice one to get in. Don't have to do very much to it. Learn how to be a landlord, all the different things that come with that part with the Section 8. And I've kind of, again, I'm more on that niche side. So like anything from here on out would be either a Section 8 or the shared living is kind of what I'm focusing on. And to get a lot more into the shared living, because I think it's something that is super needed and can benefit everyone, giving more people opportunities to have safe housing, but also giving landlords or real estate investors more income on a property that they probably would not be able to acquire that much income. So how we kind of operate our shared living. So there's different ways of going about it. You have like more of that higher class, kind of people who are maybe just getting out of college or wanting to save some money in the bigger cities. Is super super popular. But for us, we are focusing on the true kind of affordability. So we niche more into the people who are facing homelessness, are homeless vets. And the cool thing about that program, or a lot of the programs, most of the guys will get some kind of voucher. A lot of them get like what they call like lifetime vouchers. So it's kind of similar to Section 8. A lot of the same money comes from the same pot of money when it comes to like Section 8. So, for instance, we have right now one of our properties is a 4 bedroom, and we charge $600 a room. And everyone in that house is on a voucher, so the government is paying for that particular room for all the guys. So those two we actually are subleasing. So that's kind of one of the strategies too. Is we're really getting a lot of landlords who have either had really bad tenants and are spending a lot of money in turnover. So for us, because we have someone who is there, multiple times a week, and we have like cameras up, any kind of major issue, we're able to tackle them that day or that week, right? So if there's a hole in a wall or there's some plumbing leak, like it's not going to be something that's going to linger for months, because we have people who are stopping in, checking on all that stuff. So it's becoming more popular with a lot of landlords around our way, because like I'm telling them, hey, if we had to vacate your property next week, more than likely only thing you're going to have to do is do a clean, because we do room checks, we have people that's stopping by, so we're able to catch things before they get out of hand. So the landlord that allowed us to do the sublease, he had 2 really bad tenants, and we called him at the right time, and he was like, you can have them. So now, we've been a year into that process, and he stopped over the other day and was like, wow, like this is way better than I even could have imagined. So he's pretty much now like, hey, whatever I get that comes available, you've got first dibs on it. So
I think what's interesting is that it's kind of like, or it seems like you're combining probably like three strategies that are very popular right now, right? A lot of people are liking the Section 8 route, that
mhm,
guaranteed rent check every month. People are enjoying the kind of the Airbnb arbitrage where they don't really own the property, they're subleasing it or whatnot. And then also the co-living kind of pad split
yeah.
strategy. So you're combining all these three strategies into kind of one. I mean, what would you say maybe is the biggest challenge that you've had combining the three?
I would say the biggest challenge is if you're wanting to be hands off, this is definitely not for you. Like, just because you're dealing with, especially with the homeless, right? You've got individuals who never been told no, who are enablers, right? Like they've got all these issues. Maybe has some drug, alcohol issues. So it's for me, it was a passion, right? I was already doing that kind of work, helping, feeding homeless. So for me, obviously, once I realized that housing was number one, right? I don't care what kind of hope you give someone who's homeless. If they're going back to the shelter or back on the street, there's really no hope. So for me, it was already, where I was doing a lot of work with the homeless. So for me, housing made sense. And this model is definitely not for everyone as I started to dial into it because you're so more hands on, but because you can take a property and demand more rents, it's worth looking into. And maybe if you're not wanting to be as hands on, hiring a property manager or hiring a house manager kind of like we do, to help out a lot more just with the way you can help on one end, you get that good feel good moment, but also make the rent more advantageous for yourself.
Yeah, so I'm kind of in the one rental at a time Michael Zuber community, and we have a guy that goes by REI Jared, and he's heavy into the co-living pad split model. So he was just on Pace Morby's channel, so go check that out. He was talking about co-living. Um, but I guess my question also is, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe it's just Hawaii or whatnot, or like you said, every area is going to be slightly different. But for like the Section 8, typically it has to be like a year lease, right?
Mhm.
So for you, is that also true? So your people that you're placing, is it year leases that they're signing, or?
Yes. So if there are using that specific program, so I've got some guys who are maybe just they get Social Security, they're just not able to afford something on their own, so they're month to month. But if we have that voucher, they are a year, and that's something that I had challenges with. I was assuming month to month for everything. It only made sense, but as I started to dial in, obviously you have to pivot because that voucher does require a year. But the cool thing about that also, like I'm actually dealing with kind of an eviction now. We just gave someone 3 day notice, and if they are violating certain things, you don't have to go through the whole eviction process. So this guy, he's getting a voucher. He's got a lifetime voucher. Wasn't doing what he was supposed to do, causing issues. We were able to have basically because of the violation, he violated the lease twice. We were able to then just serve him with a 3 day notice to remove him from that property. The other cool thing is like once he's removed, I'm going to turn that over in less than 2 hours, because it's attached to just that room, right? All the other areas in the house are the same. So once he moves out, I'll have somebody clean the carpet, do spray some spray, get a new bed, and I've got that pretty much already rented out.
So like I talked about the guy Jared, REI Jared. I guess he probably brings up quite a bit. I guess maybe the biggest challenge for him is, you know, being a landlord. a lot of times maybe you have one tenant you're dealing with,
Mhm.
living in a home or room or whatnot. But this, you're kind of having multiple different personalities living in one space in a sense. Has that been a challenge for you?
Very much so, very much so. And again, that demographic, right? Like you're not doing this specifically for the money because if you are, it won't last. Because you're dealing with personalities, you're dealing with, some people that may have some behavior issues. You're dealing with people that's got some mental challenges. Like I've had one guy who was ready to go to jail because somebody drunk his milk. So you have them scenarios, but that's where I've learned how important kind of policies and procedures and having systems in place to have these things because the majority of the guys have like caseworkers. So then it's just communicating with the caseworkers, talking to that person. So it's really made me do more. Like I've got so much more empathy. Don't have a lot more sympathy because I think empathy and sympathy are two different things. So I've got like a lot more empathy for a lot of the guys, but at the end of the day, they're still making decisions that got them into that place. And so it's more or less like I've had to learn to I can't just, yell and scream. I've got to really communicate and talk that person off where he is mentally. And that's been probably the biggest challenges. But I always say it's going to be here because not very many people are going to want to do this model, right? So I get calls and emails and texts all the time for people that are looking for housing because the typical landlord is not going to be willing to do this model. And that's where right now, so I'm kind of communicating with a lot of the programs to try to then find other landlords who would fit that mode to allow this model at their property. So that's kind of where what I'm tackling now with a lot of the voucher holders programs is to try to find more landlords who are willing to do this model because it truly is not for everyone. But if you do, I mean, every first of the month, I mean, it's just like Section 8 that person is that person's paying that rent or the government's paying that rent. So it's cool in both senses.
That was a great lead in because that was going to actually be my next question. Is this going to kind of be your strategy where you're finding landlords that have properties that you can sublease, or are you going to start looking more for your own properties that fit your criteria to kind of lease out to the Section 8 on your own?
So for me, it's going to be kind of both. I'm looking for subleases, but I'm also pretty much anything that I do in the future are going to be, like I said, either a Section 8 or a this model. Like that's just where I am with it. I believe in it so much. Plus, there's more funding that is coming available that they're starting to relax a lot of the policies procedures that are in place, and I'm going to be right there waiting for the opportunities.
So, what has been maybe your experience with the Section 8 tenants? Because I think a lot of times people just think bad tenants, but I think that's the thing where a lot of people don't realize it means fixed income, not necessarily low income.
Yeah.
And so, what's been your experience with that?
So I'm pretty passionate about Section 8. Section 8 for us was the difference. My mom was on Section 8, and that was really pivotal into us being able to survive. So I'm passionate about Section 8, but I also understand there are bad actors, just like there are bad regular tenants, right? I hate to say regular Section 8, but I mean, let's be honest, like there's turnover on both ends. But I do think now that a lot of the governments are starting to realize you're starting to see more policies and procedures come out to give landlords more options for people who are maybe destroying their house, meaning because the voucher, like our area, I think it's like a 3-year waiting list. So if somebody is willing to wait 3 years, get this voucher and mess it up, they won't get it back again. So you have that kind of hung over the head. And I think it's just like your policies and procedures and systems on a regular tenant. If you're not screening these tenants because you're assuming, oh, the government's going to pay me, I'm not going to screen. You have to do the same screening process as you would do with a regular tenant, where you're doing a background check. You're checking like now. So I'm putting systems into place where I'm going over to their house to check their how they're living now when before they are brought into my house. So I think it's just like anything else. You've got to do your due diligence on your end to make sure you're getting the right Section 8 tenant, because they're out there. There's just so many vouchers that are available that they can't find enough landlords.
I guess my next question too, I was just thought about. So I know for like Section 8, right? Your property has to get inspected to get approved. Is that something like I'm assuming you don't have to do it after every tenant vacates, right?
So it just depends how long the last inspection was. I am starting to see where they're relaxing some of the requirements. A lot of times it's things that we should truly fix anyway, but we don't, right? So what I'm seeing is like, some major things like, the window opening and closing and not being able to stay open. It's like that probably should be fixed anyway to prevent, something slamming down on the kid's hand. So it's what I'm starting to see. Obviously, different areas are different, but in our area, it's a little bit more relaxed. Meaning, like if you do the major things, they're going to pass you. And even if you fail on that first one, obviously you get more opportunities, but it is definitely not as strenuous as it used to be. And kind of the horror stories that you used to hear about Section 8 are definitely changing. And you're starting to see more people who are on Section 8 that would not have been on it back, before, but they are now because their situation has changed.
Well, I think the big thing, when you get into real estate, it's I'm sure you've been through it. A lot of your circle or whatnot looks at you as a slumlord or all of
Yeah.
these things, and landlords. I definitely, I'm sure there's some out there, but a lot of times there's landlords out there that are trying to help, and it sounds like you are a great asset to the community. Of course, you're a firefighter. Like you said, you're a landlord trying to do Section 8, kind of helping the homeless. But you're also helping the community in other ways. Also, it sounds like you have another entrepreneur side to you, another business that you have. So let's talk about that also a little bit.
I couldn't hear. I'm sorry. Say that again.
Your kind of your other entrepreneur side, business that you have going on, that helps the community and who you're working with and what that business is all about.
Yeah, so obviously with the different avenues that I'm actually kind of cool. So the group home is kind of a passion of mine. So I'm in the process of we just got a nonprofit, and I am in the process of doing the group home model. Again, I got that shiny object schedule, but I'm trying to bridge a lot of the same gaps. So I'm trying to avoid going down all these different rabbit holes and have more of an arm off of this main kind of niche, have these different arms off of that niche versus I'm just totally going away from kind of what my base is. That's what has been super important for me. It's like I don't want to go and I don't want to flip and I don't want to do short term rental. I don't want to do mid term rental. My goal is to continue with this as my base, but have these different arms that are attached as I start to build out my portfolio and have these different options. Like, okay, I've got this property. Where does it fit on? Is it my Section 8 because the rooms are not, because obviously I want the more rooms for the shared living, but there's policies that basically that states that more than five unrelated individuals cannot be in the same house. So it's like, okay, if that's the case, then that's probably going to be my Section 8 house, right? If I can find something, because all mine are added value. So, like my one, I was able to turn from a three bedroom to a 4-2. And then my last one I just did, it was a four bedroom that I turned into a five and added a bathroom. So I'm always kind of adding the added value is kind of my play, and then having that where I'm deciding, hey, is it my shared living or is it my Section 8? And then, hey, from there, is it, where I'm dealing with the true, homeless, or am I dealing with the group home model? So it's all in the same kind of bubble, but I have these different, avenues that I can kind of go down.
Yeah, like you're saying too, it's not. I don't know if you mentioned it here. Or we kind of touched on it off camera, but it's not the most hands off, right? So if you're someone that wants it very passive and hands off, this is probably not the path to head down. But you have, like you said, a W-2. You're a firefighter. I know you probably work 24-hour shifts also.
Hmm.
You're trying to do this group home, kind of help the homeless,
Hmm.
but you also have another business helping the community, helping athletes,
Hmm.
and that seems like another passion for you also. So what
Yeah.
is that all about?
So yeah, so again, I kind of have been doing the speed and agility strength training for youth athletes for so long, as I was, before the fire service, and then as it started to progress, I started to niche again, right? Like I'm kind of big on this, niche thing. So I was doing all sports, but now I'm focusing on volleyball specific training, and it just kind of exploded. And then the social media just really exploded for me. I think we're at like 130 140,000 followers right now on Instagram. So started to see how important, just continuing being consistent about posting, being consistent about, if that was my passion. So now, we're starting to make a little bit money off of like Instagram, some of the different, sponsorships and things like that. So it's really just trying to figure out, obviously I can't do everything at once. So it's trying to figure out, um, is that something that's more of a true side hustle? Is it more something that's going to be kind of a business, or is it something I need to kind of just let go because it's more of a distraction? So that's kind of, I'm at that real right now, because I do have a daughter who is playing volleyball, and she enjoys the classes, she enjoys all that stuff, but obviously realizing, like, again, I want to be home more, I want to be able to do more things with them, and that is considered truly hands on, where I'm not making any money for the training unless I'm there, right? So it's like really trying to understand that money versus time, and I'm big passionate about how important my time is. So I ended up doing like an online program, which did way better than I expected. So that's been pretty nice to get some passive income. And I'm like, man, this passive thing is definitely nice. I see why everybody's kind of creating these courses and all the different things. I'd be like, why is everybody wanting to do courses and stuff? But it makes sense once you start, because you can't help everyone. Like, you get people that reach out. I'm sure you get a lot of people that reach out that's wanting your time, wanting you to mentor them, and it's like you can't be in all places at once. So having a nice course, online course is helpful, as it allows you to put everything into one thing, where you're not on YouTube trying to piece together different strategies or different trainings or different real estate things, right? You get that because I was that person that would go in, I would just dial into all the different YouTube videos, and it wouldn't correspond. So it was like understanding how important that online course was, and online training has been kind of a game changer for me.
I don't even think you really need me here to interview you because you keep answering my questions before I bring them up. No, but I was actually going to also bring up, is your um coaching, is it just is there like an online platform that they can, there's like an app that they can use, or is it like all in-person training? And so yeah.
So I'm still doing some in person training, but it's literally kind of as my availability, which is nice. So I one of the guys who owns a really big real estate, kind of more commercial. His kids are into volleyball also, so he allows me to have that space where I can kind of come and go, and then I train his kids. So I with the online I do it's an app. It's on like Train Heroic, and they just go on and it's kind of mapped out for 4 weeks training. So it allows them to kind of train with me wherever they are. And a lot of times, they'll have some questions, and I'll jump on a call or Zoom or something with them. But for the most part, it's truly passive when it comes to that. So that's been pretty nice to have that option to if I want to train, if my daughter say, "Hey, Dad, I want to train," I'll usually, put a class before and after, train her in the middle, and it just makes it nice because I'm not tied down to it as I was before because I was kind of all in with it. So I was doing, 3, 4 sessions a day, and it was just obviously taken away from my time with my kids, which is
So
priority. That's my number one priority right now.
so wait, remind me again. You played football, correct?
Hmm.
But your program is more for volleyball players.
Yeah.
What is
Yeah.
the reason for that?
So it was kind of wild. So I was obviously doing more sports, football, basketball, and just with our training is super aggressive. And I think we really push our female athletes, and I think a lot of them kind of yearn for that like push versus like, hey, like they're a female, like I'm not going to train them hard. Like we train them hard. So I had a couple parents that were kind of my original like would see how hard I was training like, hey, we can't find anybody that will push girls like that. Would you mind doing some training? And with just having that background of basketball, a lot of the drills are, pretty identical because everybody wants to jump, everybody wants to move quicker. So it was like just really, I just had to dial in a little bit more with like volleyball specific training on some things. But a lot of the transition was actually pretty smooth, and the girls really enjoyed the training, and I mean, it just kind of exploded from there.
Ah, I love it. I mean, I don't even know how you find time to get your stuff done. I mean, you got a
I
lot of
know,
stuff
I
on your
know,
plate.
I know, I know.
But so let's see, you roughly about 13 years in the firehouse, you said.
Mhm.
I'm not sure what your guys maybe vested or retirement plan is, but um how many more years do you think you're gonna do in the firehouse? What is your next kind of goals for your real estate
Yeah.
portfolio? And yeah.
So we're usually we're 25 and out.
Okay.
25 will get full. I think we're invested at 15. So um, my goal, like I said, is continue. Actually, I again, I love. We're busy at my fire station, but I am able to get some things done at the firehouse, which a lot of times at home is hard because I've got a younger son, and he's all go. He's a true kind of brute when it comes to he's wanting to run, and I mean he's got a little basketball court he made in our house in the middle of the hallway. So we're just always playing. So I've kind of been able to separate like my time is my time. I'm locked in, son. But when I'm done and it's your time, I'm all in. I'm putting up the phone, and that was probably the hardest thing that I had to realize. Is like me being there, I'm not present, right? So even with me, because I'll be like, oh, I'm at your practice, but he's like, Dad, you were on your phone the whole time, and I'm like, that was kind of the aha moment to where it was like they don't want all this stuff, and that was a challenge for me before because it was like, well, if I'm not there, I'm working a lot. If I get them something, that's the same as me being present. And with kids, they just want our time, right? So I would hear some of our kids, like some of our kids that train with us, parents are very wealthy. So they can pay for all the different trainings, right? But they're not present. And I would hear the kids talk about it like, man, I just wish my dad would come to practice. Wish my dad would. But it's like your dad is doing all this because you're traveling, you're doing all this. Just they're like, but he's not there. And for me, it was like, okay, like they just want our time, right? So I had to do a lot of like soul searching and pivoting to understand how important that was. Because you'll hear it, right? You'll hear people say, "Oh man, But with the fire service, I think that's probably one of the biggest things when you see firefighters interact with their families. And they work so much that a lot of times they don't even know what their kid enjoy. The kids they get out of the house, and the him and the wife don't know each other, right? So you have all these things. Because I think what the actual divorce rate for firefighters now are probably closer to 60% now. There's a reason why, right? There's a reason why that is, with us being gone all the time and all these different things. So
I was gonna wrap this up real soon, but I
okay,
kind of want to stay here real quick
okay,
because, like, you touched on it, and I'm not sure if you feel the same way. I'm just picking it up from what you're saying, and I think this has been one of my biggest struggles also in the firehouse is where when you're there, finding time. I don't want to say to do other projects is hard in a sense because there's those seasoned firefighters that have been there for a long time that are, and I get it. You do want to have that camaraderie, but like you kind of touched on too, is like when you get off, you're trying to focus on your family and spend time with your kid, and you don't want to be doing that work on your days off in a sense.
hmm
And so when you're at the firehouse, it's finding that balancing also to where you're trying to get your stuff done there, but even in your downtime, instead of watching movies or whatnot,
hmm
you're trying to get work done. And I think that for
hmm
me has been the biggest challenge because very early in my career, yes, I was, we were playing volleyball, basketball, working out. You spending four, and then
hmm
you go, watch a movie and go to bed, right? But now I'm trying to find time to make sure I get, other stuff done. And I
hmm
don't know, has that been a kind of struggle for you also?
Yes, and I again, I'm pretty open with certain things at the what well pretty much with everything at the fire. I'm very open. So I kind of had a talk with my guys, like, look, from this time to this time, this is my time. I'm kind of locked in. They even kind of make fun of me in a sense. They're like, oh, he's back in his office. But when I tell them like, hey, when I'm done with this, like I'm all yours. So we'll sit out, kind of do the cigar thing, and we sit out at the end of the day. But like my time is my time, and I'm so passionate about my time because what's the difference between me reading a book versus you sitting in the chair watching TV? And that's for me that I had to come to that realization. Like, there's no difference. You're sitting there watching TV. You guys are not even talking. Everybody's on their phone. So it's not like the old school where it was like, hey, you might be watching a movie and everybody's watching it and you high fiving and doing all that. Everybody's so in their bubble and no one's talking. So I'm like, I would rather do that, but have that time to where when I'm turning this off and we're sitting down and we're talking, I'm all yours because I've got my phone up. I'm not thinking about the next thing I've got to do. So I guess time blocking has been kind of that pivotal where I'm like, hey guys, from this time to this time, I'm not coming out. I'm not coming out and shooting the shit with you guys. But once I'm done, I'm all in. I'm locked in with that, and that's definitely has been one of the big challenges. But I can definitely tell you now, people are starting to look. They're starting to see because no one wanted to do anything with real estate, but now I'm starting to get more people asking questions. Well, what was you talking about that private money lender? What are you talking about? The buying, and so I'm starting to get people that are now understanding like this is an avenue, guys. Like, and it can be lucrative if you want it to be, but like that's been my challenge. Yes, sir.
No, I totally agree, and I think whoever's on your crew is lucky to have you. That you're kind of trying to open the doors for them or pave the way for them, and I think, like, I always talk about too, that was one of my struggles, and not in a bad way. It's more just that when you first get in the department, the captains and the older guys have
hmm
done it a certain, they've all worked for their pension. They all were putting money in their retirement
hmm
accounts, and that's how, and they had a good retirement. But we talk about on my lives and whatnot about inflation and how the economy
hmm
is going, and if you just keep heading down that traditional path, it is probably not going to end up very well for you.
Yep.
But yeah, whoever's on your crew, whoever's in your department, I think you're paving the way for them, and hopefully, like you said, hopefully more people reach out to you and ask questions on what you're doing. Yeah, so this was a great one. Like I said, I want to do this first, but we'll get you on some lives with us and
Okay.
interact. I'm sure a lot of people are going to reach out to you, and yeah, on that point, if they did want to connect with you, where can they reach out to you at?
Instagram is probably the best. Fireman Flip on Instagram. Our BTB Speed on Instagram. Fireman Flip is probably going to be the one that obviously with with the fire service and things like that. That'll probably be the easiest. So Fireman Flip on Instagram. I'm an open book. One thing I've realized is no one's in real competition. Like we can act like we are. No one's in real competition. And the
With
cool thing
police
that
officers, we are.
oh, yeah. But like the coolest thing I've really enjoyed about about real estate is just how much people are willing to help and share. Right? It's just it's almost like scary for me. It was scary because it was like, why are people willing to share so much valuable information? And as I started to get into these circles, I started to realize that people share one because they truly genuinely care if they see that you care. Also, there's probably going to be some opportunity to work with you in the future. So that was kind of one of the big changes because I'm so used to everybody. I hate to say it, but in our community, in my community, being an African, like we're so tight with information. And that's been one of the biggest things I've been wanting to change is to open that avenue up to like, hey guys, like no one is in real competition. Like share that information because at the end of the day, like my one of my biggest goals is to get my family into real estate. Have my brothers and sisters understand how important real estate is and go down that avenue. And we're right there. We're right there to where they're going to get their first one and they're going to start doing real estate and they're going to come back and say, thank you, Tony. And that's all I can ask for is for them to understand like this is a long-term play. Like this is not a quick get rich quick scheme, but it is a get rich slow profitable business and investment. So looking at it from that 10-year horizon has been kind of the biggest challenge with me sharing the information within my community. It's like everybody wants it quick. No, it's a more of a 10-year horizon. What's that ROI for the first year? Everybody wants to know that. What did you make on that first year? It's like, does it matter? Like, because I'm looking 10 years down the road.
I love that. I think that's a great way to end this episode. I mean, this was a good lot of good nuggets here. I think a lot of people are gonna be interested in what you're doing and gonna enjoy when you appear on some of the lives with us. And I
Can
think
I ask you a question? Can I ask you a
sure.
question? What is the number one thing you would tell a newer investor with the times that we're having now? What would you tell them the one or two most important things that they can do to be successful?
Well, I think, I was gonna touch on it. I didn't want to go too long, but I was gonna touch on it, and we kind of always go back to the firehouse and whatnot. And I'm not sure if you're familiar, but like Hawaii, housing prices is ridiculous. You're probably looking at maybe single family homes median is about $1 million. So a lot of the younger generation, they're kind of priced out of paradise in a sense, and a lot of them, I think they look at it and they almost give up, where they kind of just like, I'm never going to own a home, and I'm going to buy the next Tacoma, or I'm going to buy the next new toy. So I think, for me, the biggest thing is realizing that, and I was in it too. You kind of get caught up in a bubble in Hawaii. You just see all these expensive homes, and you just think like, I'm never going to be able to get something here. And Cincinnati, I invest in Pittsburgh. You start realizing there is homes out there that, like, when I saw $100,000 home, I was like, no, this can't be. This is a joke. No ways. But you realize that your money can be put to work in other areas. So one thing is just kind of opening your mind, and surrounding yourself with people that are doing it. Whether it's like you say, yourself, myself, you know, someone who might be doing like the co-living, someone might be doing Airbnb, but every market, someone is making money. Every market, someone is doing something. So I think the biggest thing is networking, and surrounding yourself with with people that are doing it, and like you touched on too, is more just having that mindset that we can all lift each other up and we can all succeed, right? We're like you're saying, no, we're not competing with each other, you know. I I mean, I don't know what your experience is, but I've never been able to buy every deal. I don't,
Right.
and
Right.
I don't think anybody can buy every deal
Mhm.
that comes across their table. So a lot of times it's more everyone is just trying to help everyone out. Hey, so and so, like how we connected, or you like you said,
Mhm.
Mike, I know Mike. We're all just have like these ties, and everyone is kind of trying to help everyone succeed. So I think for me, it's just being around people that are doing it, having the right mindset, and just and I hate to say it, but kind of break free from what maybe your parents were doing,
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
that probably is not going to work in today's lifestyle.
Yep.
So I
Yep.
think that's
Yep.
that's the one big thing. But I think just whether it's stocks, whether it's real estate, whether it's crypto, just be around people that are doing it right. So, and
Yes, sir.
I think
Yes,
that's the
sir.
biggest thing. Or even starting a business, like you have a business also, right? So be around people that are doing it, that can help guide you along.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I appreciate it. I'm always kind of curious, just the mindset of people who've been doing it, and obviously trying to give back as much as they can, just because, like you said, no one can buy all the deals. Or there'll be one or two black rocks, and I mean, no, none of us would be able to succeed. But thank you very much. Appreciate it.
No, as I said, thank you for doing this. It's always good to get other firefighters on here because I think we both kind of touch on it. It's an amazing job. It's a job that most of us grew up wanting to do. We love it. We don't really necessarily want to retire early from it,
Hmm.
but I think more people are realizing they just want to give themselves the option, if
Option. Yeah.
whether they get hurt, whether something, or like you said, even family life, not like you're talking about divorce rates going up and whatnot.
Hmm.
Sometimes you got to make that tough decision, but just giving yourself the option to walk away from a great career. And I think I talk about that quite a bit too. Is I think when I first got in, it was like, yeah, I'm going to do as 30 years, I'm going to do as much as I can,
Hmm.
but now I kind of realize is, man, you could have a great 10-year career and
Hmm.
still do it. You have a great 15-year career, and
Hmm.
just give yourself the option. And I think that's the biggest thing.
Yes, sir. Well, thanks, man. I appreciate it.
No, I'm glad we got the audio all figured out. I'm glad we had a little trouble, but this was fun. And then yeah, we'll get you on some lives. And like I said, anyone that wants to connect with Tony, reach out to him. Yeah, this was a fun one, man. Thanks for doing this.
I appreciate it, man. You have an awesome day and stay blessed.
You too, man. Thanks, man.
Yes, sir. All right.
Bye.